Okay, great. We are going to resume. Thanks, everyone, for their patience. Okay, please begin.
My name is Boris Yusufov. I am the oldest son of Jewish immigrants to New York City. I support a family of 6. It's me, my 2 parents, and my 3 siblings. My dad works, my sister works. I work as an attorney in the city. We have a combined income of over 250, I assume, or something like that. And yet, they cannot move out from me. My parents can't move out. My sister can't move out. My siblings can't move out. Yes, because the prices are crazy. Yes, because of inflation. But also, yes, because of predatory practices around the broker fees in New York. Over the last 3 years, different members of my family couldn't move out, and they tried, and they couldn't move out specifically because of the fees. Specifically because of the fees. The opponents of the bill claim to be the champions of free market and free choice. Unfortunately, the market is only free if all the parties have leverage. In the current market, it's only the landlords who have the leverage, and they abuse that leverage, and they use the brokers to enforce their will. One of the opponents of the bill has made a big fuss out of the fact that the landlords are not here to oppose the bill. It means that they must be in support of it, because it will raise the prices. Landlords are not there when I go to see the apartment. They have other people to do their bidding. We have Rabni here who represents landlords, frankly speaking, and they do their bidding. They bring these people here because they don't like the bill. The landlords don't want to lose the leverage. The flexibility that renters will get from this law is immense. It's not the only choice. We require more, but this is an important step. It gives more flexibility to the renters.
Thank you very much. Okay, next panel. Gabrielle Guerrero. Tiffany Burt. Any of them here? Okay, not here. John Willis. Moriam Pervin. And if you wouldn't mind just identifying yourself, please, so we know who was not here.
I'm Andrew.
Great. Okay, so these.
Okay, this is on. Am I good? Okay, hi, my name is Andrew Funk. I'm a real estate agent here in New York City. I'm also a resident of District 4, and I'm in support of Intro 360. I've been practicing real estate for the past year, and I have 100% only done rentals, specifically on the tenant side, representing tenants and transactions. I think real estate agents can bring a lot of value to the transaction in terms of providing, tenants access to resources that they don't have access to without an agent. Being able to do work for them on their behalf if they're not available to do so. Maybe they're moving from out of the state. However, those tenants that I've worked with have chosen to hire me and elected to utilize my services and agreed to pay me up front. Tenants that I think are going through the process on their own and finding themselves backed in these corners where they're forced to pay the fees, I do think it's absolutely egregious, and I do think it's an extortive measure that landlords and owners are taking, capitalizing on this issue of supply and demand. That is where historically brokers' fees come from in this city, is we have an issue of supply and demand, and so therefore we have a group of people that are taking advantage of that issue. And utilizing it to essentially enforce fees on people that didn't ask for those services. Also, I would just like to point out, I think behind the curtains and behind the scenes, there's a lot of illegal practices and extortion that's taking place. As we mentioned before, when landlords and owners are paying their agents, it's 1 month. When agents take that fee to the market and force a tenant to pay it, it suddenly becomes 15%. When we talk about agents utilizing that fee in an effort to prevent other agents working with tenants and, not letting them come see the inventory, saying, I don't want to co-broke with you. I've gotten too many direct deals, so I'm not interested in working with you. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, going to call the next panel. Delaney Maisel, Abigail McNeely, Lokiako Enzo.
Hello. Hello. Good afternoon, committee. My name is Delaney Maisel. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me speak. I'm a native New York City resident who was born and raised in mid-income affordable housing in Greenwich Village. I am a teacher and an actor and a singer who would be considered low income. In order to move out of my parents' apartment, I am pretty much reduced to search for an apartment that is affordable and stabilized. I recently had an experience with a stabilized pre-war unit in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. The unit was $1,500 a month, and the broker let me know that because of the high interest they were in this unit, they were asking for a $5,000 broker fee. That is almost 30% of the yearly rent for this unit. He also let me know that many other people were willing to pay this, which intimidated me into not seeing the apartment at all. Less work for him. When brokers' fees act as a barrier to entry, even for affordable units, and are dynamically priced because they are affordable, that is a predatory practice. This creates a hostile environment for artists and low-income workers who have historically been the backbone of this city. It makes New York into a city only the richest can afford. New York is already becoming a billionaire's playground, with lots of people from out of state, out of country, moving in, driving people out who have lived here our whole lives. I am one of the people who has grown up in this city and cannot afford to even move out because of these upfront fees being such a barrier to entry to getting into any apartment. It's hard enough to get approved. It's hard enough to even pay the rent. To have to pay upfront fees is simply not feasible. And for people who are artists, who are trying to make the city something less than just full of finance people, it makes it extremely difficult. Thank you.
One question, for that for the $5,000 fee that you were quoted, was there anything in writing on that? How was that communicated to you?
Through text.
Through text. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next panel, Celia Weaver, Gordon Lee, and Sharon Brown.
Good night, everyone. My name is Mr. Gordon Lee from Kings of Brooklyn County. You can also call me God. I'm a member of all the activist groups because I like to support important causes. And I was one of the children who was born when the country was protesting President Nixon, June 23rd of 1973, as well as Vice President Gerald Ford. I was born in Broward County, Fort Lauderdale City, Florida, and I came to Kings, Brooklyn County, New York City in 1977 when they elected Gerald Ford, James Carter, and Gerald Ford left office, and I grew up here under the Reagan presidency. And now I'm here like everyone else because I also take issue with forced broker fees and rising rent. Not only I cannot afford it, but I don't feel that we don't feel that we're getting our money's worth. We often don't get the repairs that we need. Instead that, we get forms of nasty attitudes from landlords. If we call them for help, some of them, and they just act critical of us instead. There's been talk about mentionings of people who are physically abused by landlords, And or something else. I don't know if anyone in here is aware of this, but I read the papers.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you. We are going to call the next panel Benjamin Bazil, Justin DeGulio. Okay. Benjamin Bezel, B-E-S-L? No? And Justin DeGulio? Okay, DeGulio, thank you.
By a vowel, you hear me? All right, I'm just taking some notes. You start the timer. I wasn't planning to speak today. My name is Justin DeGulio, he, him. I'm a former owner of an independent brokerage. I started a brokerage in 2015. I've hired and trained over 1,000 agents. We've closed thousands and thousands of rental deals. We have a 95% plus 5-star review rating. We have a very good review on Yelp and Google. I've heard a lot of compelling points today made by brokers with very little questioning and engagement by the panel here. It was a little curious to me, so I started taking some notes. The city continues to push costs onto landlords, which is only going to continue to increase the cost of rent. To me, it doesn't seem fair whatsoever to be pushing the cost of a broker entirely onto the landlords. Advocates for this bill are saying that renters are forced into paying broker fees, when we've seen the reality demonstrated today. There's quite a few units that are no fee. To me, it's like saying you're forced to pay $60,000 for an Audi. It does not make any sense. Renters have options, and yes, the no-fee options are higher, and that's what we're afraid of, is that as we push that cost to landlords, the rent is going to increase. I've heard a lot about bait and switch, tenants coming to look at apartments thinking they were no fee and then finding out that they are fee. I've never heard of that before, and I've worked with thousands and thousands of agents. I think it's pretty clear online. That could be something that we could have a discussion about in a separate bill, whether the apartments are labeled as fee or no fee. I noticed on Zillow and StreetEasy, there's a no fee tag, but it does not tell you fee when there is a fee. So I can understand maybe some confusion there. I've worked with a lot of internationals, refugees, people with bad credit. The 2019 law was very detrimental to them. Either they are priced out, they are not priced out, but they don't have an option. They're not going to be considered, or they have to pay an extra cost to insurance or the guarantors or third party. I understand this would be a big councilman. Big councilman. I'm reading my notes. I understand it'd be a big win for you. It's a new bill. You're championing it. But I don't think that it's a good fit for the city. I think it's an agenda-driven bill, and I think there's a lot of legislation we could rewrite that would solve this problem a lot better.
Thank you. And sir, were you called in the panel? Your name? Yeah. You were. Okay, terrific. Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Ellish, 20-year veteran of the real estate industry. I've watched multiple ups and downs in the market, and the fees that have tracked those ups and downs, they are tied to market economics. They are fully negotiable. I can't tell you how many times I've seen or negotiated my own fee or seen my agents negotiate their fees. I'm here to kind of offer up some solution rather than to just repeat kind of what we've been hearing over and over again. I think we have two systemic issues. One is we have a problem with affordability. That's the kind of pattern that I'm hearing in a lot of this testimony. That affordability is a market-driven affordability, as admitted by the person sponsoring the bill, Mr. Ossé. That affordability complex will not be solved by targeting a third party. The third party being the brokerage industry, which is there to, as a state-regulated entity, create transparency. The market will shift with the fee. The problem is, because of the affordability issue, and it is a very basic supply and demand problem, the city makes it very, very difficult to build housing. That is also mirrored simply in the fair housing voucher forms, which should be a boon because they were just raised to accommodate rents, more affordable for the people receiving those fair housing vouching forms. However, there's no standardization of process, and therefore the brokerage community is left to be the ones holding the bag, trying to navigate a myriad of different issues within these vouchers to create value for those tenants. If we could create a standardization for that, it would help with affordability because more people would actually be able to utilize the vouchers, which they should be able to use. The second part of this is affordability based on supply and demand. The city simply hasn't law essentially caused a warehousing of units, driving prices up for renters. This law will have a similarly unintended effect, as well-intentioned as it may be. And I think for the purposes of how the city moves forward, it is a dereliction of their duty not to create incentives for developers to build more housing to address the affordability issue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, 1 second. We have Zoom. Okay, thank you very much to this panel. We're now going to Zoom panel. The first panel is Ajifanta Morena, then Alexander Sekeli and Christopher Leon Johnson are all in the first panel. So
you may begin.
do you see them on?
Hi. Hello. My name is Allie. I live in Queens. I'm just an ordinary person who needs a place to live. When I was a child, I always dreamed of living in the big city, and 8 years ago, I moved to New York City. I lived with roommates for 7 years, but finally moved into my own place last year. I was shocked to learn that I had to pay a $3,000 broker's fee when all the broker had done was let me in to see the apartment. For most of the years that I've lived here, I only made $30,000 per year, about $18,000 after taxes. $3,000 was a huge sum of money for me when I felt like I did all the work myself. My story is far from unique. I only found out today that you can negotiate broker's fees. Naturally, the brokers did not tell me that. I just wished I'd had a choice about hiring the broker, and that's exactly what the Fair Act does. It gives tenants like me who can't afford a broker a choice about whether to hire one. All we want is a choice. The icing on the cake was when my broker couldn't even meet me to give me the keys. She left them at a restaurant for me to pick up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Just 1 second, please. Okay, is Christopher Leon Johnson on? Oh, there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay.
I'm on.
Great. You're up.
Hey, hey, can you hear me? Hello, what's
Yes.
up, everybody? It's Christopher Leon Johnson here. So, I'm here speaking on as opposition to this bill. I'm against the bill Intro 360, and I'm gonna explain why. Because the reason what's going on is Ossé, as a council member, I believe he's only doing this to appease certain special interests, such as Open Europe for All and Transall, Open Plans, and all these other so-called tenant advocacy nonprofits that doesn't really advocate for the tenants the right way. And we got to keep it real with this, right? I used to sell insurance 10 years ago, and like I said, as an agent, and the brokers have to make their money. The agents got to make their money too. If you put this bill, let this bill go through, guys. The agents won't make a lot of money. The brokers won't make a lot of money because, even if the landlords are forced to hire a broker themselves and they got to pay the broker fees, it's going to be passed on to the tenants. And you might not think that they might not pay it at one spot right at the moment, but they'll pay it time in and time out, and it'll build up. And there's no guarantee that a tenant will make those payments because we don't know how it goes. You can get a lease and you can break the lease because of non-payments. And you can get litigated. So like I said, this bill is a bad bill. We got a housing crisis in New York City. The way you saw the housing crisis is building more housing, right housing, not housing that's going to benefit Open Europe for All, where people pay $5,000 a month in rent. These people that so-called advocate for tenants, like Cryers Tenant Union and all these other nonprofits, they want to play about paying $10,000 for a broker's fee, but won't they get at Open Europe for All for advocating to make people pay $5,000 a month in rent? But the thing is, this bill cannot go through. I'm against the bill. We got to support Rebney, guys, with this bill being killed. It's an ineffective bill. We have to solve the house crisis in other ways. You got to introduce bills to really solve the house crisis, not introducing bills.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. I believe Alifanta Morena has come back on.
That's me. Hello, good evening, everybody. Okay.
My name is Ajifanta Marina. I'm the Advocacy Program Manager at Muslim Community Network. I'm here today to express my support and the organization's support for the FAIR Act. We believe that this allows for housing justice in New York. It allows for fair housing access, and it allows for equity in housing, in the housing system in New York. Muslim Community Network has a Muslim Women Empowerment Program which caters to Muslim women all around New York who make on average $20,000 to $30,000. When we surveyed them, we found that on one of the top issues impacting the women is housing. Some of these women experience domestic violence, and the only way to leave is if they are able to get housing. But with brokers' fees, it makes it impossible for these women to get housing in New York. If someone is making on average $20,000 to $30,000, but required to pay at least $10,000 to be able to get housing, it is not feasible and it is not possible. We need to make housing affordable in New York. We need to make it accessible, and we need to make sure the process is fair and equitable. And so for that reason, we thank Councilmember Chiosi for introducing this bill, and we strongly support the FAIR Act. Thank you.
Thank you. And now there's another panel on Zoom, so I will read the names. Jarrett Gold, Miranda Copland, Summer Omar, Neil Cajo, and Lucy Sexton. So I'm going to start with in order. Jarrett Gold, if you are on, if you could please begin. Jarrett Gold.
You may begin.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I wasn't unmuted. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. So much of this hearing before the intermission felt like artisanal doublespeak. Anyone who has ever interacted with an owner-side broker knows that most or many do not provide any of those high-minded, helpful services that the advocates claimed they provide. I've lived in Queens for a little while. I've only paid 2 broker fees in my life, but while moving, I've interacted with dozens of brokers. And in all but one single case, the broker has offered nearly nothing to me. They opened the door. Several times the broker told me that I could have the apartment if I paid more in the broker's fee, not more in the rent, just more in the broker's fee, just money straight to their pocket. Once a broker told me that he had another offer from another tenant, but he liked me, so the no fee unit became a half fee unit. I don't know how to describe any of that, but straight extortion. I appreciate the hardship that the brokers would experience if this bill passed, but as the committee well knows, the status quo is not worth preserving simply because it is the status quo. And anyone who looks at the real estate status quo thoughtfully would observe that brokers who contribute so little to tenants but extort thousands of dollars from them will eventually be outmoded, maybe by legislation, likely by technology. And these inefficiencies and arbitrage maximizing middlemen don't exist in the long run. They just don't. It's not the job of this council to bail out brokers who made career decisions based on the assumption that their racket would continue forever. It's time to move on to a more modern system.
Thank you. Next is Miranda Copland. Miranda Copland, if you're on.
Hi.
You may begin.
Can you hear me? I am here as a New York City resident to support the FAIR Act. I have lived here for about 6 years, and my partner was born and raised here. And I have watched my partner's family be systemically priced out of their own neighborhood in Brooklyn due to not being able to pay ridiculous fees that are often dropped on them at the last second. And my partner and I have been unable to move out of their family home because we can't find places that are within our price range that come without fees. And it's just a very hard struggle. And this is one step towards finding an apartment in New York a little bit more equitable. So I support it. That's all for me.
Thank you. Next is Summer Omar.
You may begin.
My name is Summer Omar. I'm a public interest attorney, and I wanted to strongly support the FAIR Act. As other people have already said, we're living through the most profound housing affordability crisis of this generation. Each day, you can see a new headline that sounds the alarm about the depth and severity of this crisis. More than half of renters are rent burdened, A majority can't pay rent and make ends meet to put food on the table and otherwise live their lives with some measure of dignity, let alone paying for the services of someone they did not hire. Each new fact and figure about how punishing the city is becoming should inspire bold, courageous action. Through the FAIR Act, Councilmember Ossé is answering that call to action. And you can see through all this testimony, clearly New Yorkers are glad that somebody has the audacity to stick their neck out for us, not for lobbyists, not for special interests, but for the people that the City Council has the privilege and obligation to actually represent. I'm hopeful that this bill will pass, and I'm also optimistic that for every other council member that's watching this unfold, you're inspired to similarly steel your backbone, appreciate the gravity of the moment we're living in, and fight for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Neil Cudjoe.
You may begin.
I'm unmuted. Good afternoon. I'm Neil Cudjoe. I'm a real estate broker, and I'm for to stop the intro 360. I'm here. I was there, and I'm hearing a lot of this testimony. People don't have to go through a broker. You could look for an apartment yourself. When I first came into New York, I've been in New York 20 years. And when I first came to New York, I found my own apartment by knocking on door to door and finding an owner to give me the listing, to help a family member of mine get an apartment. And I did that for myself to find my own apartment. I hear a lot of people say, I found an apartment myself. No, these brokers went from door to door, made the phone calls, called 100 numbers to get the listing, to go to the apartments and the houses and take pictures and put them, and to pay to advertise these units. The brokers are the ones that did the work. I'm hearing that a lot. I found it myself. I went online, saw it myself, but the broker is the one that did the footwork to put the ad online. And me, what I feel that the reason why the rents are so high is mainly because of that 2019 bill. Because it's true, you have a lot of landlords warehousing apartments, and you have few vacancies, and brokers are charging fees. Like they only have a few apartments where they could charge fees on.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony today. And we have one more panelist on Zoom, and then I'm going to read through every single person who signed up who we didn't hear from to make sure we did not miss anyone. Lucy Sexton.
You may begin.
Okay, thanks so much. I'm Lucy Sexton, she, her. I'm with New Yorkers for Culture and Arts. It is a coalition of 400 individual artists, small organizations, large institutions. I'm here to speak on behalf of artists. The housing crisis for artists is critical. And artists are the industry workers of this town. The creative economy is 13% of our economy. These are your workers, and increasingly they cannot afford to live here. Dance NYC recently did a survey, said that a typical dancer works 4 to 5 jobs and has a household income with the other people they live with totaling $50,000. They also have to move more often because there's so few apartments are stabilized. That means they are facing these huge one-time fees. It requires access to capital. And you heard other people testify today. They had access to capital because they had families that had money. This is an inequitable system where a working kid who is here trying to make their living as a dancer, who comes from New York, who comes from a working class family, does not have that access to capital and can't afford that barrier of getting those broker fees. And this is a real barrier. And this is a critical problem. In the last 5 years, we have lost 25% of our teaching artists have moved out of New York City. New York City without artists is going to be New York City without a creative economy. That is going to take $110 billion. That is what the creative economy generates. So this is a workforce worth investing in, worth protecting any way that you can. And of course, it's a larger problem. This is only one piece of it, but it's an important piece of it, and it's a real barrier. So removing that barrier will make it more possible for artists to continue to live and work and thrive here in New York City. Thank you for introducing this bill. We are definitely in favor of the FAIR Act.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm now going to read through the list of everyone who signed up but has not yet testified to make sure we didn't miss anyone. If you are here and you do not hear your name called and you wish to testify, please go see one of the sergeants who's raising his hand right there. Let him know. Or if you're on Zoom, just raise your hand. Okay, bear with me. Shanna Walla, Doug Albert, Shannon Lucitra, Ruth Patterson, Jean McCune, Gianpaolo Pernicone, Maxwell Fleischman, Shaquem Hinz, Kiala Fai, Shreya Wadawa, Michaela Everett, Thomas DeLuca, Kadisha Pickney, Sheena Sam, Ordiana Ceballos, Ra Landrum, Katie Wolf, Rodel Rodriguez, Zachary Thorpe, AJ Parker, Albin Henneberger, Alyssa White, Charles McCraren, Nikela Rohr, Miranda Hernandez, Sparky Brathwaite, Quinn Parker, Kayla Sinclair, Ashley Rivera Cobo, Benjamin Tamarin, Valerie Gordizenda, Imoni Cole Palmer, Michelle Villagomez Mieto, Christine Sanders, Mildred Tompkins, Cassandra Smith, Quinivan Ravat, Kiana Connolly, Antoine Bisson, Regine de Cossard, Michael Kala, Yin Yang, Nicholas Lamis, Diesha Almodovar, Tashina Brignol, Rashida Lundrum, Rima Desai, Matthew Weisberg, Whitney Hugh, Ayazad Tanweer, Winsome Pendergrass, Cynthia Novus, Marshall Madsen, Edward Siegel, Miranda Copeland, Emily Hansen, Stephanie Potager, Robert Ramenian. Okay. You didn't hear? Okay, so do you want to just fill out, if you could go to the sergeant and fill a card out, please? And you can testify? Yeah, if you could just, if there's anyone here and you didn't hear your name read and you wish to testify, just please fill a card out and then we will call you. Thank you. Okay, Amber Guadati. Oh, I did call? Yeah, but let's go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm a New York City resident. I currently live in Queens. Ossé is not my representative, but he is today. So thank you. And I just wanted to say that I had a written testimony that I scrapped because I've been here since 8 a.m. and listened to everybody. And I feel quite delusioned by the experiences that folks in the opposition have stated. I feel as though there's not great representation for the actuality of what younger folks are experiencing when they're moving between apartments or in the city for the first time. I can say myself that my partner and I have been here for 8 years, and we have paid nearly $12,000 in broker fees alone, not moving costs, not last security, broker fees alone. And it has been devastating. We've been here the entirety of COVID. We've dealt with landlords. We've done the whole back and forth. And the reality is, every single time that we've had to deal with a broker, we can barely get them to respond to any messages. We barely get them to show up It has been a nightmare. And I feel like we have not been straight up about this, especially for, younger millennials that are here. I don't know what millennial has $10,000 to $20,000 in a savings account. It's just non-existent, especially given inflation, where in some neighborhoods, milk is $10, $11, $12 a gallon. It's just not the reality. So I wanted to speak for those that didn't get to speak today that are probably in that situation. There was also a comment made earlier about how brokers and people in the real estate industry were here on their own time. I am not at work today. The 500, 700 people that came out this morning and were outside also were not at work today and missed out on pay in the same exact way that the brokers did. So I think that that's an important thing to note, and I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And our last speaker before we close the hearing is Sharon Brown.
Hello, my name, am I ready? My name is Sharon Brown. I worked in the real estate industry out of New York City for Florida Properties. I'm noting also with one of the earlier speakers, it was done on Shavuot, which a lot of the Jewish people weren't able to come out because it's a holy day. So let's take that into account when we're doing stuff with this bill. I also want to say defend Israel, release the hostages, let Yahweh's people go, defend Israel. Okay, so the landlords, they need to make sure that the fees are up front from the brokers between the two of them, but the landlords don't seem to have a big problem between what the brokers are doing. So the brokers need to make it clear what charges they have for people that are going to be using their services. They can't have hidden fees. If they're going to have fees, they have to let everyone know what is going on. It can't be hidden costs. For the tenants, they should know if it's going to be a sliding fee, if it's going to be a flat fee. If they want to find houses, people that are landlords should not turn them away because of the fact that they want to force them to go to a broker. And then some of the landlords are getting a kickback when people have to use a brokerage firm to come to them. Some of the landlords are friendly with the brokerage firm, so we have to make sure. And we don't want it to be abusive on all three sides. So they need to come to the table and do some kind of bargaining where it will help all of them. I've been on all sides of the argument. I worked in the real estate industry. I've been a landlord and I have been a tenant. And they need to have bargaining where they come together. No hidden fees, no hidden costs. That's what should happen there. Thank you. Defend Israel.
Okay.
Release the hostages.
Okay,
let
we're gonna
Yahweh's people go.
we
Defend
cannot.
Israel.
Okay, everyone has their 2 minutes. So yeah, no. We're not going to do this. Okay. First of all, I really want to thank everyone for their patience. We had unbelievable testimony today. I think no matter where one stands on the bill, I thought it was just so great to see the kind of civic engagement that we saw where people stayed with us literally to 4:30. So I just want to thank you for doing that. We take all of this testimony incredibly seriously. People also have the right to submit testimony within 72 hours of this hearing. So I just want to make sure people know that. We're going to take all of this under advisement and continue conversations. Before I turn it over to my colleague for any closing statement he wants to make, I do want to say for those of you that were in the beginning of the hearing, I imposed a 5 p.m. deadline on the administration to give us their data. They have indicated that we are going to get something before 5 p.m. So we will, at a later time, we are going to close the hearing and we're not going to keep it open for that, but we will share that data as soon as we get it. So once again, I want to thank everyone for coming out today. And I now want to turn it over to my colleague, Councilmember Ossé, for any closing statement.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me? Thank you so much, Chairman, and to everyone that came out to testify today, whether in support or against. I know a lot of us are working people and have jobs, so for people to take the time out of their days from 8 a.m. to wait until now to testify is wonderful and really appreciative. This bill is necessary, and I think we heard that from a sizable amount of people today. Through the support of labor unions, immigration organizations, and regular tenants in New York City, this seems to be a top priority for the council's legislative agenda, and I really hope that we get it past the finish line. This is not an anti-broker bill. I think I've said that multiple times throughout this hearing, even in the hiring of a broker myself, but I just don't believe that anyone should be forced to pay something for something that they didn't hire or order, and that's what this bill is trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. This hearing is now closed.